The top 10 rookies for the 2024 MLB season and the top 10 most valuable players in Major League Baseball in 2024. This is an absolute loaded episode. We got multiple lists, and we're going to check in with Aram on the Arizona Fall League. The rosters were just announced today, so we're going to break all of that down here on the Just Baseball show for Thursday, September 26th, and it is all brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Remember, folks, download BetMGM, whether it be on iOS or Android, and use promo code JustBaseball. Why? First bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if you were to lose. So, download MGM, use promo code JustBaseball, deposit at least $10. Once you place your first wager, if it loses, you'll get it all back, up to $1,500 in bonus bets. It's an absolute no-brainer. But remember, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older. Terms and conditions apply. Normally, Aram, Jack has something off the top that he likes to explain. Maybe he ran into somebody weird at a coffee shop. He always has something, but this episode is too goddamn loaded to get into semantics like that. So I want to ask you straight up, Arizona Fall League fires you up, and for good reason. We get to see a lot of the best prospects in Major League Baseball. Break down the Fall League for us and some of the players that you're most excited to see.
Yeah, so for those who may not be too familiar with the fall league and why it's something that's like fun to keep tabs on, it's really an opportunity for teams to send their prospects. Generally, it's going to be their top prospects or just prospects that they want to get more reps to go get more reps. And there's a few different reasons, a few different criteria where I think you'll see guys get sent out there. I think one is, and we're seeing more of that with how aggressively prospects get pushed. One is to speed up that timeline, right? Where you have a guy that you had in the upper minors last year. You want to see if he can potentially be ready to break camp, but spring training is never enough games to be able to figure that out. So you get an extra 25 games or so in this Arizona Fall League, even though it is hitter friendly out there, to just see what these guys can do, whether it's a pitcher or a hitter, and just get more intel. There's so many scouts out there, so that's one side of it. Another side is, and this is also very common for players who are hurt, for a lot of the year, to make up some of those lost reps and be able to, just be able to work on some things, work your way back, and not have as big of a layoff when you come back at the beginning of next season. And then the other, which has made this league so much fun now, is just getting your top guys more reps and exposure. And we're seeing teams just send guys out there that already had a full season that they just want to keep building on that momentum because it's their top dog. I mean, the first time I went out there, for a longer period, I got to see Jason Dominguez and Jordan Walker and all these guys. And like, those guys didn't really need more reps as much as they needed, I think, just to continue to build on the momentum that they had built. And I think the big league team wanted to get a little bit more of an idea of what they've got with those guys. And when I look at the group this year of players that have been, sent out there, when you look at the rosters, I think this might be as much talent from a depth perspective as I can remember in a long time. Maybe 2019 was pretty damn loaded, but this is as loaded from, I think, top to bottom as I've seen an Arizona Fall League roster across the board. And it's really fun because you have a mixture. Each team is, a mixture of a handful of affiliates, or excuse me, a handful of big league teams. So you have this mixture of players, almost like an all-star team. It almost feels like the Cape Cod League in a way too, where you have players from all different orgs playing together against another team with players from all different orgs. So you get an opportunity to just see so much talent in one place. And I honestly could have put a list of like 20 players together that I'm super pumped to see. And I think I could have expanded that to 30 or 40. But for the sake of time, there's 10, really, like I'll throw in one other that I'm really extra pumped to see. And it's usually either going to be guys that I just haven't gotten a chance to get a live look at yet, or have, probably just, I think, wanted to see maybe where they could shift. So there's some catchers here that I want to just see, how they've progressed there. Whereas like Xavier Isaac's going back out there with the Rays. I've seen so much of him, so he's not going to make this grouping here that I'm talking about. Chase DeLauder of the Guardians is going to go back out there again because he missed so much time this year. I've seen so much of him. Of course, I'm excited to see him, but he's not at the top of my list. And the same story with Colson Montgomery. It was a bad year for him in AAA, so the White Sox want to get him the reps to see if he can turn things around to potentially be ready for the big leagues early next year. I've seen a ton of him as well and saw him in the Fall League last year, so he doesn't quite make the list of a guy maybe I'm most excited to see. But should I just walk us through the 10 names that I'm most pumped to see?
Yeah, absolutely. I also have a few more questions, like how impactful is a great Arizona Fall League to scouts or to someone like you? Like, let's say there was a player somewhat on your radar is coming off a fine season and then really explodes in the Arizona Fall League. Like, how much stock do you put into something like that?
So it's a great question because I think it's always become a big topic of conversation, right? The ball really flies out there in Arizona. Generally, the pitching is not as good. If you think about it, you want to send your guys out to get more reps. What's the one area where teams are usually not going to want their guys to get more reps pitching
Yeah.
unless they've missed a lot of time and they're now healthy? But usually, even if they're just getting healthy, teams will be like, no, 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 not worth it. We'd rather
Like
you throw a bullpen to the
it's not
complex.
ideal to go like a pitcher comes back from an injury saying your next start is in Colorado against the Rockies. Whether
Yeah,
that might be a nice matchup, it's not great to pitch at high altitude like that.
exactly. So like with the ball flying out there sometimes, and they just don't want him in a game setting, maybe. So the pitching side can be a little bit thin. I think this year the pitching is a lot better than usual. So that's another reason why I'm really excited for it. But that said, that's kind of why you have to take offensive numbers with a grain of salt. I think what it really ends up being is an opportunity for, scouts to just kind of see how players are progressing. Where, that was the first chance I got to see of Jackson Merrill really grinding at shortstop at the time. And there was even questions there of how he would be at shortstop, and just watching him progress and work pregame and just see every game I checked in when I was out there in the fall league, seeing him get better and better and better at shortstop. Like those are the things that stand out. You'll have guys put up some monster numbers because you can get hot for 20 games in that environment. So I think from a statistical standpoint, it doesn't change too much, but I think scouts are looking at a lot of the nuances and the intricacies. And like for me, like I'm going to be there looking at Moises Ballesteros, seeing how he's receiving and how he's handling, just his duties behind the dish. For me, I'm going to be looking at Jack Caglione and see if he's not chasing as much. I know he's going to put up numbers, most likely, but it's more about, seeing what specific things they can work on and how that's progressed. But, there's been some guys that have had monster seasons in the fall league and then don't really carry that into the regular season the next year.
That sounds good. So let's get into your 10. Who are you most
So
excited to see?
I've an 11th real quick. It's Tommy Troy, of course,
Obviously.
first round pick with the D-backs, missed like pretty much the entire season due to injury. I think he's so talented. I just want to see more of him. But the other, and kind of going in order of who I'm most excited to see, June Suk Shim. He's now a Marlins prospect. I'm not excited to see him because he's a Marlins prospect. I'd have him first, and like I'd have him right here if he never got traded in that Brian De La Cruz trade. He has not thrown in like a year and a half in a game setting. We haven't seen him since early, I think 2 seasons ago, basically, is what it feels like. But he has some of the most ridiculous stuff you're going to see. We've barely been able to see it. He's only thrown 8 professional innings, but he can run it up to the upper 90s. He has a disgusting splitter and a breaking ball that eclipses 3,000 RPM with crazy characteristics. So, like, this is a guy I want to see what it looks like in person, and I'm really excited to just see him on the mound. I was surprised the Marlins sent him out there, so that must mean he's feeling good. And I know this is a guy that was on the Marlins radar for a while, so I'm just pumped to see that pitch mix and the stuff because he's got crazy, crazy stuff. Drake Baldwin, not as much of the like sex appeal. He's a catcher in the Braves organization, but I'm excited to see him because I think he's the most big league ready catcher in minor league baseball right now. There wasn't a specific like spot for him to be able to get up and help the Braves right now, but I think with what's kind of gone on at that position this year, unfortunately, with how Murphy has struggled and Darno not really looking like a guy that they're going to put back there much. Like Baldwin's a really good hitter. He has power, he has feel to hit, and the defense has come along. And I'm excited to see what that looks like in person and just watch that defense continue to come along. And I think that's a guy that could end up breaking camp with the Braves. That's why he's been sent out here. Then you got two guys that
Before you
I think,
just
yeah.
quickly before you move on, just want I think it's important to say because my eye test at the futures game has a 100% hit
Oh, I
rate.
forgot you saw him.
Basically, when I see a guy for an at bat or two, and I just got to watch him for a little bit, instantly I can find my guys. Drake Baldwin was kind of one of my guys. I kept looking over to you, be like, this guy can rake. He's hitting the ball hard every single AB. And I'm just saying, I had the same opinion about Lawrence Butler. And look how that worked out. We're not going to talk about the guys that didn't work out. It's important just to harp on the positives here.
Well, I already forgot the ones that didn't. I only remember the ones that succeed. You
That's
do
the
a
goal.
great job of that. But no, that is a guy that I know. Even like on a serious note, you saw him put a swing on a ball
Yes.
backside to the left
I'm
center.
like,
You're whoa.
I'm joking, but I'm not. Like,
Yeah,
I obviously my eye test doesn't equate to actual a prospect being really good. But what I can say is from the very limited time I saw him, he jumped out as a guy who's consistently hitting the ball harder than most at the catching position. And he's not like some gargantuan human. He's smaller
yeah.
stature, hitting the ball as hard as some of the biggest guys there. And that's what caught my attention.
and he's come along defensively. I think he had one of the most impressive years relative to expectations of really anyone in the minor leagues, aside from a couple of the obvious, like a Christian Campbell and some others. But leading into the two other catchers that younger, and the focus is defense. Tyron Lorenzo, right, traded over to the Tigers in that Jack Flaherty deal, went crazy offensively in after the trade. Switch hitter with monster power, but there's some questions about whether he's going to be able to stick behind the dish. I'm just excited to see him go about his business behind the dish, because I get to sit kind of first row right there. You can get so close and you can really see how these guys are working back there. Same story with Cubs prospect Moises Ballesteros, right? He can really hit. And we got a lot of pushback for him not being in the top 100 because of how good he has been offensively, reaching AAA as a 21-year-old. But the defense is quite bad behind the dish. He's young, so he's got time, but I really want to see, he's clearly there to work on the defense. I really want to see how he progresses out there with the glove. Remember, the Cubs, their spring training, you know, their facilities out there, like they're going to be hands-on with him. So I'm excited to see that. Sticking in Chicago, I think one of the most underrated pitching prospects in baseball is Grant Taylor, the White Sox. But we've barely been able to see him. He was disgusting after kind of figuring things out at LSU. He came out of the bullpen, and then things really clicked for him in the summer, where he dominated on the Cape and then had an eye-popping fall, and then unfortunately had to undergo Tommy John surgery. So we had barely been able to see him. Came back early this year, was disgusting. Some of the most ridiculous stuff I've seen. 20 inches of vert on the fastball, a couple of banging breaking balls, like gross stuff. And then had a lat issue, wiped out the year. So he is now healthy, and he's like 96, 97. I think this guy's a top 100 prospect if he can just get on the mound and be there.
You can just play.
I can't wait to see him play.
He's like a Buxton-esque pitcher in a way.
Yes, at
Freak
this point.
stuff. Just please play.
Please play. The stuff is silly. So that is top of my list of pitchers I'm excited to see. Ethan Salas, obvious reasons. It was a really rough year for him. He comes with so much prospect intrigue and still so young. I just want to see him in person. I haven't really been able to see him much outside of the futures game. So I just want to see if he can build on what was a really rough year. And we didn't really see any signs of progression there. So I want to see that in the fall league. Jack Caglione, I want to see how far he can hit a baseball out there in Arizona, first of all. Second of all, I do want to see if he can cut down on that chase. Like, he had some really impressive swings this pro debut, but he also really struggled to rein in that aggressive approach. Bryce Eldridge looks like the Giants want him in, and Jack Caglione, of course, is in the Royals organization. Bryce Eldridge looks like the Giants want him on the opening day roster, which is crazy. He's like 19 years old. He's 6'7", gargantuan power. He's a first baseman. They might try to stash him in right a little bit too, but he started the year in A-ball, like they have pushed him quickly, high A, double A, triple A, and he has held his own at every single spot. Now that they're sending him to the fall league, that screams to me that they want their first round pick out of high school to be there as soon as possible and help them. That's pretty exciting. So I just want to see if he's capable of, making enough contact, and just want to get my first live look at a guy that's 6'7" with that much power. It looks like he's 40 years old, even though he's only 19.
Yeah, that's my issue. I think Bryce Eldridge is one of the better prospects in baseball, but I can't believe that he's 19. I just refuse to believe it. He looks 40.
It does not seem like he's not from like, it's not just because he's 6'7". Like, look at his face.
Yeah.
He looks like he looks like he has a wife and kids at home.
He looks like he's a coach. 19 is gnarly.
And they're pushing him like he's 27.
Good for him.
The top two that I think just with the most prospect intrigue, Colt Emerson, Seattle Mariners prospect. He's missed some time early in the last couple of years with some nagging injuries. He has one of the sweetest swings from the left side. I want to see if he can stick it short, because the glove is like, it's fringy, but I think it's progressed, and I think he can stick it short, but I just want to get some more live looks there. And I want to see how much power he can tap into, because it's a 60 hit tool, but how does the power come along? This guy could be a monster. He's the best prospect in that Mariners organization. And then Leo DeVries of the Padres org, 17 years old, handled a very aggressive assignment to full season ball, and as a switch hitting shortstop, really went crazy, especially in the final months of the season, where he was one of the better hitters of the lower levels, period, as a 17-year-old. He's the youngest player out there. He's an absolute dog, him and Salazar, but he's younger than Salas. I am just so pumped to see a guy that we have in the top 15 on our top 100 list. He's definitely the highest ranked teenager we've had in a while, or at least prospect younger than 19. So I just want to see what it looks like in person here from a switch hitter with plus power potential that has already produced, despite being way younger than his competition out there. I mean, that's a guy that I think is going to be a top 10 prospect in our next update. And, we're going to get to see him in person in the fall league. So some really exciting talent, and there's still way more out there as well. We're going to do a full episode, a full call up episode breaking down all of the names that, you should look for out there and why we're excited to see him.
My last question before we get into the top 10 rookies list and the top 10 most valuable players from this season. What has been, I guess, who's a player that you saw at the Fall League that not just shocked you the most, but maybe had the best performance that you've seen at the Fall League? Like, who's the guy from your years covering the Fall League that you feel just shot out more than most?
I don't know how it came out statistically because he was really young to be out there, but Jackson Merrill's polish, that was a big reason why I just really started pushing the agenda of like this guy can break camp, this guy can be
Mm,
there, and we're going to talk about Merrill more later. And
yeah, we will.
like just what he did there, like that made me realize, okay, that's a guy that can get there to the big league level like so freaking quickly that it's going to be one of those things where he's a 20-year-old rookie, and that's exactly what we got. So just seeing the polish there, and just also had him for an interview, we just hearing the way he goes about his business, I was pretty floored with just everything that he can do there. And then I know he had a letdown year after a strong fall league, but seeing Victor Scott do his thing, like
Mm.
just seeing how fast that guy is, Cardinals organization, of course. I mean, again, it was a letdown year. They pushed him pretty aggressively. He had to fill in at the big league level early this year, but I mean, watching him run and go get it in center field and do his thing, and then Chase DeLauder, that guy was hitting balls off the fist. Like I literally think he punched one with his hand and it got out to right field, just got over the wall. Like seeing him really like unleash on balls was crazy. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep going. I got to see Jason Dominguez out there, dude. Like his
Yeah.
BP was hilarious from both sides of the plate. But I'd say DeLauder from the speed, power perspective, and watching him just miss hit balls that left the yard. DeLauder did some of the more absurd things I've ever seen out there.
One more thing before we get to the lists. Where can we find all this coverage? Because obviously, we talk about some of the top end prospects. You do a great job breaking it down on this show, but you write so much, the call up. Let us know
Yeah.
what the coverage is going to look like.
Yeah, so we'll be breaking it down like crazy on the call up, all the rosters, everything. But I'm going to be out there from the 7th to the 17th of October. So if you're out there, definitely reach out. Would love to connect with you. I'll probably have a bunch of sunflower seeds from Chinook too to give you. But yeah, we'll be pretty much tweeting tons of video out there. I'll be putting video out on YouTube, doing interviews as well. So you can keep up with the call up YouTube, keep up with my personal Twitter, and then of course keep up with justbaseball.com. What I did last year, and it seemed like people enjoyed it, was just kind of like my notes week, like every few days out there, things that were standing out to me. And I'll definitely be doing that and just seeing some trends and breaking it all down. So keep up with justbaseball.com, my personal Twitter, and of course the call up and the call ups Twitter as well.
So we're done talking about future rookies. Let's talk about the top 10 rookies from the 2024 MLB season. But before that, quick break. So Leo Morgenstern broke down the top 10 pitchers from the 2024 season and compared it to our list from the last time. Now, Eric Truden did this for the top 10 rookies, and then Ryan Finkelstein, our managing editor on justbaseball.com, did it for the top 10 most valuable players. So if you're interested in the starting pitchers list, go check out yesterday's video. This will feature both lists. So we're going to react to these. So Eric put as the honorable mention for the top 10 rookies, shortstop Mason Wynn is our honorable mention. And no clear other rookies that deserve a mention include Tyler Fitzgerald, Tobias Myers, Spencer Horwitz, Ceddanne Rafaela, Hunter Gaddis, and Colt Keith. He also ended it with this year's class is full of talent, and it certainly is. So coming in at number 10, we have Mason Miller of the Oakland A's. Coming in at number 9, Wilyer Abreu of the Boston Red Sox. Number 8, Cade Smith, reliever for the Cleveland Guardians. 7, Luis Gil of the New York Yankees. Number 6, Colton Cowser of the Baltimore Orioles. Number 5, Austin Wells of the Yankees. Number 4, Shota Imanaga of the Chicago Cubs. Number 3, Jackson Chourio of the Milwaukee Brewers. Number 2, Jackson Merrill of the San Diego Padres. And number 1, of course, Paul Skeens of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So the way Jack and I did it yesterday, more reacting. Do you find any problems? Do you like a section? Do you like that Eric maybe lifted up a player that you think deserves more love within this top 10? So Aram, will start sort of with the honorable mentions. Mason Wynn is the honorable mention, and then we have some honorable honorables. We've done that plenty of times on lists.
Yeah,
Among these,
this is a year, dude, where I feel like there's so much rookie talent. There's got to be some honorable honorables. I mean,
yes,
it is crazy. Like, how about Michael Bush has 21 bombs, and I mean,
and wasn't in
he's
the
not.
honorable honorables.
No,
Yeah.
Joey Ortiz, guy had a 104 WRC plus with great defense. At third base and plugging into shortstop a little bit. Not in there either. Like Wyatt Langford, I know it was a slow first half, and he's been really good in the second, but still a rookie with a 105 WRC plus and 13 homers and 16 bags. Like he's not even the honorables. And I don't even think he should be. And then PCA, if he had turned it on a little bit sooner, without a doubt, I think he's in the top 10. And I understand he has a 90 WRC plus, but what he has done defensively, obviously, is insane. He's one of the best defenders in the sport already in the outfield, but also swiping 27 bags and is as efficient of a base stealer as anyone you're going to find. Like it has been pretty cool to see him do his thing and settle in as well. And like he's still going to have a 3-win season potentially here, despite really struggling for the majority of the year offensively.
A couple other guys that I wanted to mention, like Jacob Young, we've talked about him for the Washington Nationals, a speedster in center field. He's 10th among rookie hitters in FWAR. He's ahead of guys like Michael Bush, Wyatt Langford, Otto Lopez, again of the Miami Marlins, another somewhat of a sub. I mean, Otto Lopez, yeah, he's only got 6 homers, but he's got 19 steals, 87 WRC plus, but he's got a 2.2
Great
FWAR.
defense.
But that's the thing. It's like that guy is not even mentioned in the honorables.
Mm-mm.
And he's putting up a 2-win season, right? And Parker Meadows, who, I'll go to war for. Someone tweeted something at me, tagged me a bunch, because people know at this point, me and the Parker Meadows truthers go way deep. Because I donated on his rookie of the year odds, and then he kind of went down and up, and then now it's been awesome. Tigers are 51-26 with Parker Meadows in the lineup. They are 32-48 otherwise. If that ain't valuable, I don't know what is.
That sounds like the rookie of the year to me.
That's what it sounds like to me. But unfortunately, just wasn't as good as our top 10. Do you think, before we get into it, that Mason Wynn deserves to be the honorable mention over a guy like Tyler Fitzgerald? Because it's interesting. They both have the exact same FWAR. They both have the same amount of home runs. Tyler Fitzgerald actually has 17 more steals. He's got a higher batting average, a higher OBP, slugging over 100 points more, 136 WRC plus compared to Win at 102. But Win has played 50 more games.
Yeah.
And Fitzgerald has put up the numbers that Win has put up. But again, Win is such an excellent shortstop. So is Tyler Fitzgerald.
It's a really interesting conversation. I It's weird because I think there's two schools of thought here. One is, well, Fitzgerald didn't play as many games, and look at what he's accumulated, and how much, more productive, I guess, he's been in a vacuum, and he's, matched the home run total, like you said, in 17 bags against Wins 11. But the other side of it is the longer the season for a rookie, usually the more likely you're going to have these like ebbs and flows. And obviously Fitzgerald lit the world on fire out of the gate. And then really over the last like 30 games, he's got a 623 OPS. He has one home run.
Yeah.
So I know the numbers cumulatively are the numbers, but if you think about it this way, like Fitzgerald has not had as much runway now to come down to earth a little bit. And Wynn came out really hot too. So I think it's more impressive when you're playing shortstop every single day for, the entirety of the season. Wynn's going to play 150 games this year. And it's not to knock Fitzgerald, but I'm going to give the nod to the guy that, I think did it over the course of the season. Like if you give Fitzgerald another 50 games, does he turn it around? Maybe. And maybe he's back up again and just blows Wynn's numbers out of the water. But he also could continue this 620 OPS, and then the numbers aren't necessarily close, and the war starts to tick back down. You don't know. And I think just that unknown alone, you got to give it to the guy that's done it and been there. And I think it's just too big of a difference in terms of games. And I do lean towards the Mason Wynn defense more as well.
I love that you brought up that point, because I do feel like that's more important. It's important for every position, but especially for rookies, right? In your first year, you're going to have ups and downs. So if you hit the ground running super hard and you've only played 92 games, those downs are not going to be seen as much, right? We're going to have to wait for the quote unquote downs because every single player has it. Don't take it personally, Giants fans, next year, right? And then if he continues, we could say, well, there weren't that many downs. This guy's a real big time player. While Mason Wynn has had to go through those while playing an entire season, the defense has still been there. And a 3.2 F war is excellent for Mason Wynn, which is insane because I agree with you. Mason Wynn has had a great year, but Tobias Myers has also had a fantastic year for the Brewers. 3.09 ERA in 134 innings. The Brewers needed a guy to step into this rotation, and he has done that beautifully for them. So, what's, I guess, more valuable when we're talking about the rookies? A pitcher with a 3.09 ERA in 135 innings, or a shortstop slightly above average offensively, fantastic defensively? It's tough. I would side with the hitter. So that's why I understand that Mason Wynn is the honorable mention here, but I couldn't let my guy Tobias Myers just not go
No,
unmentioned because you could make the argument that Tobias Myers should be on this list over a Willie or Abreu, right?
I,
Because
I
Abreu was on here. Has he been better than all these guys?
I don't disagree. I think the Abreu's defense helps, and he's just another guy that's done it all year and has accumulated. But I mean, Tobias definitely deserves some love in that realm too. It's crazy how much talent there is at the big league level, just getting there right now. So I mean, it's wild to see. And the last note on Fitzgerald too, like 31% K rate. That's going to be the highest among I think any of the rookies we're going to talk about, and probably the highest among any rookies with at least 300 plate appearances. Usually that's going to imply some more volatility there too. So like, again, I don't want to just assume it, but you got to give Wynn credit for sustaining these numbers. I think over nearly double the sample size of plate appearances.
And also, I think I'm being a little bit unfair to Willie Abreu because I was kind of looking for from the honorable mentions to kind of take Willie Abreu off the list. And that's more recency bias kind of in my mind because when I'm watching Red Sox games, I'm watching him really struggle at the plate, especially in the month of September. Just to quantify what I'm saying, slashing 190, 262, 293 for a 555 OPS. But it's okay to run into a rookie wall in September. This is a guy who put up a 970 OPS in April, 750, 700, then back up 842, 896. He's been excellent all year long and has run into a bad September, which have lowered his numbers, like especially in the F4 department, WRC plus, from what they were for most of the season. So again, is it fair to judge a guy who's played the entire year? I don't know. But I guess I still probably would take Mason Wynn over Abreu. I'm not sure. Wynn now has the slight lead in F4. He's playing shortstop, and Abreu's been a good hitter, not such a great hitter, right? 116 WRC plus to Mason Wynn in like the 102, 104 range. So not that much better playing in a corner outfield versus shortstop.
I
I
I
feel like
agree.
Mason Wynn should be on this list over him.
I agree. I think so too. That'd probably be the one change I would make. Um, is have Win there. But it probably was one of those things too. Or you asked me 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
I'm probably leaning Abreu because the numbers really have hit a wall here. So it's close, but yeah, I would have leaned towards Mason Win.
But I'm glad that we have Mason Miller coming in here at number 10 because it's hard to say, well, has Mason Wynn been better than Mason Miller? Like, I don't know. But
That's yeah, it's impossible.
what I do know is that Mason Miller for the A's has been just phenomenal. 27 saves in 52 games, 61 innings, 2.34 ERA, 2.15 FIP, 14.16 Ks per nine. But I also love that we did not buy into big media. We didn't buy into big media here, folks. We know that Cade freaking Smith has been not arguably, because if you look at F war, he has the number one F war among relievers. You
Huh.
heard me correctly. Over Emmanuel Clase. That's how good this guy's been. Pitched to a 196 ERA, 73 innings in this Guardians bullpen. He's throwing every day, it seems like. 12.27 strikeouts per nine, 2.6 F war
He doesn't give up homers
ever.
ever.
He doesn't give up anything ever.
It's absolutely wild. I mean, his fastball has got that like invisible, crazy carry to it that just overwhelms hitters. But to be that like overwhelming fastball and you allow one home run out of the 282 batters you faced, yeah, I mean, this is without a doubt one of the best rookies this year. It reminds me of like what Yenny or Cano did last year. But honestly, I'm trying to remember statistically, like side by side. Is it recency bias to think that what Cade Smith has done has been a little bit more impressive than Yenny or Cano's season last year? Because Cano had like the ridiculous stretch where, I mean, he was putting up numbers that, I mean, we haven't really seen, but then came down to earth a little bit, just relatively speaking. Finished with a 2.11. I think with what Cade Smith's doing from like a swing and miss perspective, and
Yeah.
I think he'll finish with a few more innings. It's really close, but I think from the underlying data perspective, I do believe what Cade Smith has done has probably been a little bit more impressive.
You're probably right. I mean, Cade Smith 1.96 ERA, and then we keep going down the list. I mean, Luis Gil has been one of the better pitchers in baseball this year, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it about Luis Gil. The only person who can beat Luis Gil is Luis Gil,
Mm-hmm.
because when Luis Gil is in the zone, when he's commanding all of his pitches, he is diabolical. He is so otherworldly disgusting. He can put you in his back pocket and dice through lineups, and it really doesn't matter when, where, how he's going to beat you. Now, if he's not in the zone and the walks are all over the place, the batting average is still going to be great because it's just legitimately hard to hit this guy, but he can then beat himself when he has runners on base at all
Yeah.
times. But this year, collectively, consistently, he has really put it all together. And according to BetMGM, he is the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year in the American League. Now, I don't really understand that because I think if a pitcher is going to win this award, first of all, I think that there should be a pitcher rookie of the year award,
That's what we're
a
talking
hitter
about.
rookie of the year award. You've said that. Jack has said that. I'm saying that. Walker Bueller, when he comes
Yeah.
on the show, has said that. We need that. But if the precedent is if it's close, you give it to the hitter. I don't understand how Luis Gil can be the favorite when both Austin Wells and Colton Cowser, who actually rank 5 and 6 on this list, I think have just been a little bit more valuable to their team.
Yeah.
Like, I am a Yankees fan. Luis Gil has been incredibly valuable, but the catcher who's been hitting fourth for a lot of the year, providing protection for Aaron Judge, really unlucky with the batted ball quality at the beginning of the year. All of that has started to really kick in. Now, lately, he hasn't been quite as good, but has still been driving in runs when the Yankees fully need him. The defense has been elite as well. Now, you can ding him a little bit for games played, but at the end of the day, a catcher is not going to play every single game. Now, Colton Cowser of the Orioles has also been fantastic. He's got a 3.9 F4. He's hit 22 bombs. He's got a 120 WRC plus. But I look at Austin Wells, 3.5 F4. He's got 13 bombs, 111 WRC plus. It's very close, but again, I'll give it to the guy on the best team in the division. I just think, like, as a Yankee fan, I think Austin Wells has been a little bit more valuable than Luis Gil, but you could compare him to Colton Cowser and say, well, Cowser's been better, and I wouldn't stop you there.
Yeah, and Cowser, I think just from what he's done production wise, and like we've even seen like hit a little bit of the rookie wall and then come out the other side, and it's been really productive. I think where Luis Gil has something going for him is what I probably would have expected the least is, with the injury history coming off of that, and also the command challenges. To use, he's gonna have one more start, right? One more before the year is
Good,
over.
but again, I never really know. Like, I don't think anybody, like, he's slated to, but again, there's weather on the East
Yeah,
Coast right now. Like, we aren't totally sure.
assuming he makes one more start, he's going to
Yeah,
eclipse 150 innings, barring a tragedy. He's 146 right now. And just to put that in perspective, like the most is Shota Imanaga at 173, but that's apples to oranges because he's a grown ass man. Like
yeah,
he's in his on the other side of his prime, pretty much at the tail end of his prime, pretty much, and has been built up. And it's just again apples to oranges. But then you have Mitchell Parker at 151 innings and Mitch Spence at 147 innings. So just for him to be right there, pretty much third amongst the rookies and innings, given his profile, I think is really helped him.
definitely.
But I'm with you. I will lean towards the hitter, and I think it's very very close between those two, and you can't go wrong either way. But I think Cowser just finishing this year pretty strong now, and settling in at about 120 WRC plus. He's gonna have a 4 F4. Like that's pretty awesome.
And we keep continuing to move down the list here. I think the top four is perfect.
Yeah.
Shota Imanaga, then Jackson Chorio, then Jackson Merrill, then Paul Skeens. I'm just going to continue to, praise Shota Imanaga because for whatever reason, I got a lot of pushback when I said that I think he is better than Christopher Sanchez has been this year. He's got a lower
Really?
ERA. He's got more strikeouts. He's got less walks in 4 fewer innings. And I was surprised by that. And I understand, like, right, you go to Christopher Sanchez, his F WAR is off the charts. Ground ball rate, incredible. Quality of contact against has been very solid, and Shota Imanaga has run into some home run issues. But the thing is, from a production standpoint, when it comes to ERA, Shota Imanaga has been more effective. And if you want to go even further and look at some ERA predictors, Sierra, which is probably my favorite, which I also don't really factor in when we're looking at production, because a lot of these are predictive stats. They give us a good glimpse into who maybe we should buy into next year. But for right now, if I'm looking at production, I'm looking at Shota. I think he's been a little bit better than Christopher Sanchez, and that's no knock on Sanchez either. I just think Shota has been fantastic all season and has the numbers to back up being better than Sanchez. And the fact is, Sanchez was our number 8 guy on this list, on the starting pitchers list. That's how good Shota has been.
Shota, like it's actually crazy that Shota's fourth. And when I first saw that, I'm like, oh, wait, that can't be right. But then you see what Jackson Chourio has done over the second half, and just what he has been able to do from an availability perspective as well, and also just consistently impacting the game, whether it be with the power, whether it now be like with the stolen bases, and I mean it's just been superstar level production pretty much in the second half, or at least a budding superstar level of production in the second half. So it's pretty close there, because I'm with you. I think Imanaga's been as good as just about anybody when you're comparing some of these lefties here, because he's also eating those innings and pitching in an environment where we thought maybe it wouldn't totally bode well for him with the home run concerns that he came here with. So aside from a couple bad starts, like in a couple of blowups, really, he's been consistent otherwise. It's not like, I think the ERA is pretty inflated by a few blowups, whereas then almost every other start you can pretty much count on a quality start from him. So I think he's been as good as just about anybody. Of course, a rookie makes it different, but in terms of the lefties outside the obvious tier one guys, like he's been right there. So I still think, though, when you have Chourio playing every day and you have him being the youngest player in Major League history to go 2020, and just the trajectory that he's on this year, there's more impact there, and just the way, I think there's a little bit of a narrative aspect to it too, right? Where Yelich goes down, Chourio around the same time kicks it into all-star gear and has been an integral part of a lineup that is going to finish in first place here. So like that definitely, I think has a little bit more weight for me. But also, the fact that he's playing, it sucks that he's not a center fielder, but the fact that he's in a corner and now playing good defense in a corner, I think only helps his case too.
Absolutely. So just to round out the rookies list, are you still in the boat where you think Merrill should be the rookie of the year over Skeens? Have you transitioned? Like, I've been going back and forth on this. The reason I bet Jackson Merrill was I thought Skeens was going to get shut down. There was going to be some sort of innings limit at the end. The Pirates did not do that. And with the remaining innings that he did get, he shoved. Ever since he stepped onto the mound, he's arguably been the best pitcher in baseball. We've talked about that with Jack too. It's hard not to say Skeens, but the thing is, what pains me about that is that Merrill, when it comes to playing every day, getting a new position in center field, because he was a shortstop like 7 months ago, putting up a 5-win season, looking as good as he's been, as clutch as he's been, hitting the ball as hard as he does, playing great defense. He has been so otherworldly fantastic for a Padres team that is now trying to go win the National League West. That triple play to end the game, to clinch their postseason, that was insane. I was watching it like 1 in the morning. I was going to tweet it out. I was genuinely like too tired. It was so deep into the night, and it just, a part of me feels like it should be Merrill, but another part of me knows it should be Skeens. But regardless of your opinion on it, what a race. I mean, what a race. This is arguably the best pitcher in baseball next year, taking on a 20-year-old switching positions, launching into one of the better outfielders in all of the game. It's incredible what we've been able to see.
And in the second half, I mean, he's been even better than Chourio somehow, right? And like, has been playing as well as anybody in baseball, Merrill. Like, it's remarkable. And to be doing that every day for, the one of the best teams in baseball, that part really does, stand out to me. But there's also this level of, and we talked about it, and I made the case that, I think you could say that Jose Fernandez's rookie season was maybe right there with Skeens, or maybe even a little bit more impressive, given he threw more innings.
Not good.
But sub 2, like
Yeah.
sub 2 ERA, you just don't really see that in a rookie season. And it's 131 innings. And that part is like, it can be a little bit harder for me to, and I don't like to be like the innings police when it comes to this kind of stuff. But at the other side, it's like, I'm already going to lean towards the everyday player. And then you're also going to make me like shift to 137, let's say, if he gets one more start, like 100. It's not going to be 140 innings.
Is he going to have another start?
I think he gets one more.
Yeah.
The last time I think somebody won Rookie of the Year with less than like 145 innings was DeGrom, where he had a 2.69 in 140 innings. But that year, I mean, DeGrom doesn't beat Jackson Merrill that year.
No.
DeGrom won it because the runner-up was Billy Hamilton with a 648 OPS. Yes, he had 56 bags, but the third place was Colton Wong with a 680 OPS. And so it was just like one of those years where it just sucked in the rookie class. And that's why Rookie of the Year is so much of it is just timing. But looking at the pitching side of things, like there's just not a lot of instances where we have a guy, and I know the game has changed a lot, but not a lot of instances where we have a guy that's thrown that few innings, and not a lot of instances where a pitcher really wins, period. Obviously, Devin Williams in 2020, but you can chalk that season up when it comes to that kind of thing. It's weird. So as I always do lean towards the everyday player, but there's something about like if you look at what rookies have done as a pitcher, so even if you want to like sort by 130 innings, I'm pretty sure like Paul Skeens is the first rookie starter to throw at least 100 innings and have an ERA below 2, assuming he doesn't give up a few extra runs in the next outing, since 1973, Steve Rogers. And then before that, it was Hilton Smith in 1937. And by the way, Steve Rogers was the runner-up that year. It is, I think, splitting hairs, and ultimately it's going to be in the eye of the beholder. I think I'd have to do a lot of research and precedent and just see what I want to compare, like how many things that Merrill has done this year have like not really been done, and then how many things has Skeens done that have not really been done. The challenge is Merrill is giving you so much value defensively. He made another big grab out there last night, and he makes it look
so
easy.
much, dude. He's so good at center field.
And there's not a lot of comparison that we can have from like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, because we didn't really have the same information that we have to be able to quantify defense there, especially in the outfield. So it makes it so difficult for me, because a big part of why I do lean towards Merrill is how freaking great he has been in center field. Even if you ignore the fact that he's just learned the position, which I do think adds to the intrigue, he's been phenomenal out there. It's a 5-win season. Like I would love to know how many rookies have had a 5-win season and not won Rookie of the Year. That's the challenge for me. But Golden Boy's probably going to win it, right?
I mean, yeah, but he's really, really good. He's Golden Boy for a reason. I mean, it's tough too, because we're talking about Paul Skeens being the best pitcher alive, right? Or like in that breath when comparing him to Skubal and Skeens, just on a per inning basis. Like, why can't we compare Jackson Merrill to some of the best players in baseball this year? I mean, Jackson Merrill has a higher WR or has a higher F WAR than Willie Adames, Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Rafael Devers. He's 17th in Major League Baseball. He's tied with Cal Raleigh, right behind Yordan Alvarez and Bryce Harper. Like, so if we're comparing,
how about among center fielders? He's third behind only Aaron Judge and Jarren Duran.
I don't know. I don't know who to vote for.
I don't know. He's slugging 500, dude.
I think for me, I mean, it might, for the voters, it might just be Skeens, because it's like, oh my God. But I do think that Skeens' next start is important.
I do.
I do think it's important.
And I said that with the episode with Jack, because he's made 22 starts this year. So like that's 5% of his season, essentially. Like that's a big deal. So I do think it can be won or lost in his next start. And if he gets that ERA back over 2, I do think that somewhat arbitrary number does make a difference, and just how he looks the next time out there. But I think Skeens knows that too, and that's why he's going to freaking shove. I'll be honest, my vote would go to Merrill unless Skeens' next start goes like 9 or a complete game like Shuddy, or like 7 innings, 1 run, 10K, something crazy like that. I lean towards Merrill. Maybe that's some bias, but I always lean towards that everyday player making an impact with the glove in a premium position. But I mean, I think the start is huge. I do think it makes a difference.
we definitely need a pitcher and a hitter rookie of the year award. So we broke down the top 10 rookies. You can go find Eric's article on justbaseball.com, but it is also linked in the episode description. If you want to read more about Eric's reasoning behind his top 10 rookies, go check out obviously the honorables. We got a ton of honorable mentions in there. So go check it out on justbaseball.com. Before we get into our top 10 most valuable players in baseball this season, our last break. The top 10 most valuable players in baseball this season, written by Ryan Finkelstein. Again, Aram and I are going to react to this list, and you can find all of these lists on justbaseball.com. No honorable mentions here, which I love from Fink. So if your guy doesn't get named, well, Fink hates you, basically. So at number 10, William Contreras of the Milwaukee Brewers. At number 9, Ellie De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds. Number 8, Ketel Marte of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Number 7, Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. Number 6, Gunnar Henderson, Baltimore Orioles. Number 5, Francisco Lindor, New York Mets. Number 4, Juan Soto of the New York Yankees. Number 3, Shohei Ohtani of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Number 2, Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals. And number 1, Aaron Judge of the New York Yankees. Actually, I lied. He does have an honorable mention. Jarren Duran would be his
Wow.
honorable. Also, he also mentioned Brent Rooker, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Yordan Alvarez. So scrap all the thing about Ryan hating your favorite team. And one last thing, Ryan is a huge Mets fan. He's the host of Locked On Mets, does an amazing job. He had Lindor at 5, so don't get mad at us.
Yes. Yeah, please don't get mad at us for that one.
Actually, you can get mad at us, whatever.
It's position players, right? Because I could make a case that Tarek Skubal is in this conversation.
Definitely. So, this is just position players.
Yeah. Because I just wanted to Tarek Skubal deserves down ballot MVP votes.
100%. So does Sale.
Sale does too, for sure.
Yeah.
And I just think there's a level though of what Skubal has helped do, what he's done for Detroit this year. I mean, he's gonna throw almost 200 innings and has pretty much carried them and that staff for a lot of the year until they've had this magic run. So in terms of valuable players, I'd put him in there. But I mean, in terms of, is there anyone else honorable mentions wise that you would throw in there? There's a lot of names that, of course, you could fly around with and discuss because there's so many good players in this sport. But I loved the Duran shout because he's encroaching on 7 F4.
Yeah.
I think Ellie De La Cruz can be in that conversation, but it also depends on how much you value counting stats defensively versus
Ellie is on here.
Stats.
Ellie.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, Ellie is number 9 on this list.
Okay.
So again, William Contreras, Ellie, Ketel Marte, Jose Ramirez, and then some of the big obvious ones. One that is left off this list, and wasn't even in the honorables. It's so funny. I look at Matt Chapman's numbers, and I'm like, you deserve to be in here. And I watch Giants games, and I'm like, yeah, he's still very good defensively. He's still a good player, but he's not as valuable as some of these guys. But I do want to shout him out because one of those guys where me watching doesn't accurately represent the numbers at hand. Matt Chapman has put up a 5.4 F-WAR this season, higher than William Contreras, who comes in at 10 on this list. Matt Chapman, higher F-WAR than Bryce Harper, Yordan Alvarez, Cal Raleigh, and Jackson Merrill. He has had a fantastic year for the Giants. It's just when I watch him, I don't feel like I'm watching a 5.5 win player, but that's the beauty of how good Matt Chapman is defensively, how hard he hits the ball, gets into that power. He's still a very good player. It's just in my mind, I don't think top 12 in F-WAR this year. I just don't.
No, and I think some of that is where he's playing. Obviously, the offensive output's going to be suppressed a little bit. But the fact that he's a good series away to close out the season from having the first 30 home run year in San Francisco since Barry Bonds is pretty outrageous and shows you just how much of a career renaissance he's had over there. But also, just on the surface, I'm okay, he's hitting 247 with a 330 OBP. That's going to be a top 10 most valuable player in baseball.
No shot.
I don't know, but he's definitely deserves to be in the conversation there. And I even think when you look at some of the offensive output from a Marcelo Zuna, I understand that he's a DH and I understand that he's a total clog on the base paths, but this dude's hitting 310 with 39 bombs and 102 driven in. He's a 160 WRC plus. That's quite a valuable player as well. And you can kind of say that about a couple of the other more bat driven guys that I think could be in the conversation, like a Vladdy or a Yordan. But I also do think it's important to weigh in the defense for most of these guys, unless you're off the charts offensively.
And I think actually Fink, like I made fun of Leo. I want to make fun of Eric. Lists have been pretty damn good. Like I don't now is William Contreras. I get it, right? He is 13th in F4 this year, 132 WRC plus, 23 home runs. Like those are great numbers, right? And they definitely pop off the page. But when we're thinking top 10 players in baseball this year, are we sure? But then you realize like how valuable William Contreras is to the
I
Brewers.
liked his reasoning.
I
I did.
love the reasoning, and that's why I highly recommend going check out the article. We don't just want to repeat his reasoning; we want to give ours. Like William Contreras is so unbelievably valuable to the Brewers, especially with Yelich going down. Like this team isn't atop the National League Central just out of randomness. William Contreras has been their best hitter all year, and has been arguably one of the best defensive players in the league at the most premium position. And with a guy like William Contreras, you would kind of expect him to miss some games, right? He's a catcher. 151 this year. He's played every day. They need him in the lineup. He is so unbelievably valuable for a team that kind of shocked the world. I mean, they were plus 800 to win the National League Central preseason. He has been, I'm so happy he's on the list. Like, even if he was like 18th in F4, he has to be here because of how valuable he's been for Milwaukee.
Well, and you know, and Fink brought it up, and he gets into it in detail. But like, just the fact, anytime you have a pitching staff that's outperforming what you think it should have done,
Good point.
it's not always going to be the catcher, but you got to think about how the catcher is working with that staff and how he's able to get the most out of them. So like, I think it was really clear when Fink breaks that down, and I think there's a lot of things that stand out that have just made Contreras. I mean, the best catcher in baseball and most valuable in a lot of ways for this Brewers team and just in general.
Yeah. And then we go to number 9, Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, no qualms with me. 25 bombs, 65 steals.
Yeah,
Now,
people point at the errors, right? Because you have the actual error being made. But the thing about that is, okay, yes, he fields a ball and throws it away, or he boots a ground ball. That is one error. What you're not going to account for mentally every single time and doesn't always get tallied up in a specific statistic is how many hits did he steal? And like if you make an error on a routine play, but then you steal 3 or 4 hits for every error that would have been probably getting through for 75% of shortstops in Major League Baseball, I'll tolerate the errors. But on the surface, you're going to remember the errors. And on the surface of the stats, you're going to see the errors. So I think that's a really important point here with Ellie. I mean, if you watch the defensive video and stuff, like he is stealing hits from guys left and right with
all the
his
time.
range and his arms. So like, yeah, okay, I'd like to see that fielding percentage get up, and I'd like to see him be more consistent. But when you're stealing hits to offset that at a much higher clip, you're going to grade out well war wise, but you can also just watch him and see him do it. So that on top of 65 bags, on top of the power, on top of just everything, I can absolutely get behind that. And I think it's been a really, really impressive year.
And I also think like the strikeout rate and the chase rate, they're going to come down eventually when the Reds give him a little bit more protection in the lineup. Because think
Yeah.
about it. Why would you ever pitch to Ellie De La Cruz if you're facing the Reds? Now, I know
Only because
Spencer
you just don't want
Steers,
him on base. That's it.
exactly, but that's how dangerous of a
He's
player
his
he is.
own protection.
You cannot let him get to first because it's turning into a double and sometimes a triple. That's what happens when you have 65 freaking stolen bases. I'm actually shocked that he only has 25 home runs when you consider how much power that he has playing in Great American Ballpark. I expect that to tick up year over year, but
Yes.
just in this season, I could understand people saying Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been more valuable than Ellie De La Cruz. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has 30 jacks and he's hitting 324 with a 548 slug, gaudy offensive numbers. I could understand if you want to throw like a Jordan Alvarez or a Bryce Harper, two dudes who just rake 30 plus home runs. Like, I get that. But I do think that Ellie De La Cruz has been slightly more valuable when we look at the totality, especially playing shortstop and then factoring in his electricity on the base pass. Because he's not just a good base runner, he's not just a great base runner, he has the most steals in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
So I like Ellie being at 9 over those two, but maybe do you have a different feeling, or do you agree with Ellie at 9?
I agree with Elliott at 9. I think I think you could make the case for William to be a little bit higher and maybe edge him out, but then you
True.
look at the team and the role he's serving and the way the team has performed and everything we just talked about. I think it's a good spot for Ellie.
Ellie's 6.4 F4 too.
Crazy.
Like that's a lot. That is a
A lot of
ton.
war.
That's a lot of WAR. And then Ketel Marte, you're not going to hear anything from me, right? He's got a lower F WAR than Ellie De La Cruz, but he's played in 34 less games just because he's been injured. Or not 34, 24, excuse me. He's got 132 games under his belt and has just been a amazing blend of both defense and offense. 35 jacks for him, nearly hitting 300. 150. I mean, we could just go through all the numbers. They're insanely gaudy.
It's outrageous what he's done. And from the right side, he's legit been Barry Bonds. Like it has been great. If not for the injury, like I mean, he's up there with just about anybody. So I mean, to see the power shine through like this. By the way, his numbers from the right side: 342, 403, 674 slash lines, 1,077 OPS. I mean, what he's done from that side has been crazy. He's been good from both though, and I mean, I think even if not for the injuries too, he probably would have stolen another 10 bags. I think the ankle really did hold him back a little bit and some other, ailments too. So, I mean, to hit 35 bombs in 132 games and as a switch hitter and getting on base the way that he doesn't punch. Like this guy has consistently been one of the more productive and valuable players in baseball. And I have no qualms there at 8.
I think if we got a full season from Ketel Marte, we'd be talking about him in the top 5. That's how good he's been.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think he's only dinged because of the lack of games played. And that's who we get into next on the list is Jose Ramirez. I mean, you're not going to hear any qualms from me either. And you say, well, he is 10th in F WAR, right? But if we're talking about value, I mean, it doesn't get more valuable for the guy at the top of the division who is 3 home runs away from going 40-40. Defense,
Yep.
offense, base running. He does legitimately everything for the Guardians and has been doing everything for the last half decade. And that's why I think he's the best third baseman in baseball still and just continues to prove it year in and year out.
He doesn't strike out ever.
Ever.
Like
He's perfect.
It's amazing. Like he is just such a great baseball player. I mean, he is that offense, and yeah, I mean, you could put him anywhere, and I'd say okay. I don't even need to look at like the numbers and where he totally stacks up. If you told me he's 4, I'd say okay. Like he's just one of those guys that I don't even think the numbers ever fully do him justice. And I mean, it would be really cool to see him get that 40-40 plateau. But regardless, he's just been doing it, man.
Isn't he kind of the Mookie Betts of the American League?
In what way?
Doesn't strike out. Hits a lot of home runs, which you wouldn't expect from a guy of smaller stature.
Yeah.
Plays excellent defense. Is loved by everybody. Is really just a exceptional all-around baseball player. You can never find any holes in their game. They don't get themselves out. They're exactly what you'd want from a baseball player.
I could get behind that. I could absolutely get behind that. If only J-Ram could like plug in at any random position that the Guardians desperately needed. Then I would say it's uncanny.
I kind of think that if you threw him in the corner outfield,
oh, he'd be fine. Yeah.
If you threw him at second, and if you threw him at short, like would he be okay?
I think last time he did it was like 2016, and I don't think he was a total disaster when he plugged in there. But yeah, I mean he's just an incredible athlete, despite not looking much like it.
Yeah, he's not quite as athletic as Mookie Betts, but I think if you were to compare someone to Mookie, he's the closest thing humanly possible.
Well, Mookie's one of those assholes that's just good at everything.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like, oh, let me try that, and just nails it. He's just like, fuck off. Like, he's one of those guys. But I don't hate that comp at all. I can get behind that.
I also could see Jose Ramirez like roll up to the bowling alley to go play Mookie and then also bowling at 300.
I could see him being one of those guys that's really annoyingly good at everything too. No doubt.
And then we get even higher on the list. I mean, Gunnar Henderson. Ever heard of him?
Yeah, a couple times.
8.2 F4. Dude, he's 37 jacks. The only thing why I feel bad for Gunnar, I mean, I'm not going to feel bad for him. He's going to make $1 trillion. He gets to play for the Baltimore Orioles, and he's young, and he's got gorgeous hair. He's perfect. But his season has been, I think, a little bit diminished just because of how good Bobby Witt Jr. has been, how good Aaron Judge has been, Juan Soto in his same league. This is a shortstop, not 25 yet, not even 24, putting up an 8.2 F4. I mean, that's one of the best seasons from a shortstop in the 21st century. The thing is, Bobby Witt Jr. is having one of the greatest seasons for a shortstop ever. What a year.
Yeah.
Just what a year for Gunnar. I mean, the rest of the Orioles offense has fallen completely flat on their face, really, outside of Anthony Santander and, of course, Gunnar. Like, Adley's supposed to be his partner in crime. He hasn't been good offensively, and most of the young guys haven't picked up the pace either, except for Colton Cowser. Gunnar has just put the offense really on his back and defense too. He's perfect. I mean, all these guys.
It's amazing too because I agree with you. Like, there's been points where I'm like, wait. Every time I check in, I'm like, wait, he's doing better than I thought. He's doing better than
Yeah.
I thought. He's doing better than I thought. And what's nuts is he'd be kind of setting his own bar for young shortstops. If you look at shortstops 23 years old and under, since 2000, he's the first shortstop to have an 8 WAR season, F WAR season, and that's 23 years old or younger. The funniest part is the other guy is Bobby Witt Jr., who's doing that to a 10-win threshold. So, like, he's doing something that we hadn't seen since 2000. And the next best season from a shortstop since 2000 was Tatis in 2021 when he took the league by storm with 42 pumps. He had a 6.8 F WAR that year. He slugged 611 though, and he really slugged his way to that. Ironically, both had a 282 batting average. But I think the fact that this is the best season we have seen, if you subtract Witt and what he's doing right now, from a shortstop since 2000, that's 23 years old or younger, and then unfortunately that same year, some other guy's doing it but better. It's easy to get a little bit overlooked. To your point.
Here's my first problem with the list. Gunnar and Lindor should be flipped.
Really?
Look at the numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like, here I'll just read them off the top. Gunnar Henderson has played 7 more games than Francisco Lindor. He's got more homers, 37 to 31. He's got more RBIs. He's got more runs, but again, who cares? 21 stolen bases to 27 stolen bases for Lindor. So Lindor has the edge there. Batting average, Gunnar. On base percentage, Gunnar. Slugging, Gunnar. WRC plus, Gunnar by 22 points. And F WAR, he's almost a full win better.
Yeah.
And
I agree. I agree. And in the defense is, of course, fantastic with Lindor. And
for both. They're both elite.
But they're both good. Like Gunner's solid. Lindor is one of the best. But I'm with you. I think when the discrepancy is that significant slug wise, like it's 17 outs above average is ridiculous from Lindor.
Yeah, he's been amazing. I don't want to diminish anything because, like,
but I agree.
I would take Gunnar. We're splitting hairs between the best players in Major League Baseball. Francisco Lindor has objectively been insanely valuable. He's a wizard with the glove, 30 plus bombs. He steals bases. He's done everything for the Mets and is a big reason why they are here now. But Gunnar Henderson is also fits a lot of those molds and has just been better.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think just the offensive gap is just too significant. If Gunnar was like a bad defender or like a below average defender, then I could see it more. But he's been fine there. So that's probably the one qualm I would have too.
You know what? I also have another qualm. The more I think about it, I think I'd move Gunnar over Soto too. I think I would
always get behind you docking a Yankee.
I know, and it's against an Oriole. Gunner's been better. Like,
it's more important.
Soto is a better hitter than Gunnar Henderson. I wanted to get that straight out of the way. But he's not that much better of a hitter, at least this season, right? 40 home runs to 37 for Gunnar, 21 steals obviously to 6. Gunnar strikes out a little bit more. Like, Soto walks more than he strikes out. Like, Soto is such an unbelievable hitter that, like, WRC plus, which loves when you walk, loves when you don't strike out. Like, it's going to like Juan Soto more, and deservedly so. But the fact is that Gunnar is playing shortstop while Soto is playing a corner outfield, and Gunnar does have the higher F WAR. And Soto is hitting 40 home runs. That's amazing. But like Gunnar is 37. I think the shortstop, I'm taking him over the corner outfielder, even though I watch the Yankees every single day. And I'm talking to my dad on the phone and I'm saying, Dad, nobody's going to agree with this, but I think Juan Soto is a better hitter than Aaron Judge. Just the way that he operates it at bat, I've never seen it before. It's so unbelievably amazing. And Aaron Judge is just the biggest firepower of a human being I've ever. It's a little bit different, but I think split hairs between the best players in baseball. I think Gunner's been better than Soto. I do. I think Gunner should be 4.
There's 3 guys in baseball who've walked more than they struck out among qualified hitters. It's Juan Soto, who's the best and walks the strikeout rate. Then you have Mookie Betts, and then you have Stephen Kwan.
But like, here's the thing. If Gunnar didn't walk at all and struck out a ton, okay, we have more of a conversation. Gunnar walks at 11%, strikes out 22%. He's just not Juan Soto in the box with the best plate discipline since Ted Williams.
Yeah, 17 OBP that it's just so hard to pass on in terms of that. So like there's two players in Major League Baseball with an on base percentage above 400 that are qualified. It's Juan Soto, it's Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
So I get, but I don't disagree. I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here because I'm going to lean towards the positional value. It has helped that Soto is no longer a disaster in the outfield
No, he's been good.
consistently.
Been
Yeah,
good
he's been
overall.
solid,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Good. He's been fine. Yeah, he's
Fine.
okay.
I could hear that though. You know, I could hear it. I think that you could go either way though there.
They're
And
so
it's just
good.
like how much do you weigh the offense versus the defensive value of a shortstop. And but when the home run gap is that close and he's stealing bags too,
Yeah, and playing
it
short.
does make it tough. Like a lot of the value really is for Soto is you know the fact that he's just going to walk more than anybody else. But you know, walks versus defense and at shortstop, like it's a conversation. I could go Gunner over Soto too. I don't disagree with that.
And the more I think about it, like if I'm Gunner, why am I walking anyway? Who's going to hit me in besides Santander right now?
Yeah.
Soto walks, so he's got Judge behind him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's tough. They're all so good. I'm telling you, as a Yankee fan, I think Gunnar Henderson has been better than Juan Soto has this year, which is a crazy thing to say. But like I look at the numbers and I look at how important the shortstop position is. I see how good he is playing it defensively. I think he's been better. He's a higher F4 too.
I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah. And then the top three I love. I absolutely love Ohtani, Bobby Witt, and Aaron Judge. And I'm glad that Fink didn't just put Ohtani at number 2, maybe above a Bobby Witt Jr., just kind of, best in the American League, best in the National League. I'm glad he gave Bobby Witt Jr. his flowers. Bobby Witt Jr. is a 10.3 F4. I mean, this is absurd to see two guys with a 10-win season. Judge is going to finish as an 11-win season. Like and just to, I guess, kind of explain my thoughts here of when I said that Juan Soto is a better hitter than Aaron Judge. I've never seen anybody operate and at bat own the batter's box more than Juan Soto. I've never seen anyone.
You have to execute perfectly to get him out.
Exactly. But I've never seen anyone produce more per AB than Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
He has a 218 WRC plus. And I brought this up earlier. You know how we talked about like Julio Rodriguez when he gets crazy?
Yeah.
He sees red. He never gets out for like a month. His WRC plus, like in this craziness, is lower than Aaron Judge's of the full season.
Yeah.
It's amazing what.
And that's a star player. Like that's
it's an amazing player.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, just starting with Witt versus Ohtani, like what Ohtani's done offensively, obviously first 50-50 season, all that good stuff. That's great, but those are a lot of counting numbers. When you look at WRC plus, it's only a 7% difference between Ohtani and Witt. And there's no doubting, in my opinion, that if you subtract Ohtani from the Dodgers versus subtracting Witt from the Royals, that the Royals would be affected disproportionately, like to the nth degree. Like it would be, the Royals would be in a lot of trouble without Bobby Witt Jr. They've already kind of hit a wall. I think obviously the Dodgers are much worse off without a guy that's hit 53 home runs and stolen 55 bags and hit 300. But I mean, what Witt has done with the lineup around him too is just absolutely remarkable. And then the defensive value, what he's turned into at shortstop is just remarkable too. I think that's the perfect trio there. I think that's exactly how it should go. And maybe Ohtani's season statistically has been a little bit more impressive in terms of most valuable player. I mean, Witt has been Witt has been more valuable to the Royals.
As we end this, I want to just read Aaron Judge's slash line because even the biggest hater out there can recognize true greatness of what I'm about to read. 155 games. He has 56 home runs and 139 RBIs. Both obviously leading the Major League Baseball by a sizable margin. Ohtani's at 53 home runs and 123 still RBIs. Judge also has 10 steals. I just think that's funny.
Yeah.
He's walking 19% of the time. He has a higher walk rate than Juan Soto. He's only striking out 24% of the time. Slashing 323. So he's a 320 hitter. 459 on base. 700 slug. He's 118% better than the league average hitter with a 218
That's the craziest
WRC
stat
plus.
by far.
118% better than the league average hitter, not a bad hitter. Mason Wynn. He's 118% better than Mason Wynn offensively. He's 2 Mason Wins and then more for a 10.8 F4. Last season, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, they were in the 8 range. He's like Ronald Acuna Jr. plus Mason Wynn this year. All wrapped up in one. What an amazing player.
That is crazy. And just in terms of the slug, and because that's the number that, like, seeing that it's 699 right now, I really hope that he can eclipse that 700 threshold, because I mean, you just don't get to see that much anymore since really the steroid era. And if he can eclipse that 700 threshold since 2010, man, the only guy that's got close was Soto in 2020. Don't really count that because 47 games. The next closest was Aaron Judge in 2022 with a 686. And then the next closest beyond that was Yelich with a 671.
Let's put that in perspective, though. He has a higher slugging this year than he did when he broke Roger Maris's record.
Yes. Yes.
Anthony Santander has 44 home runs. He's slugging 512. Aaron Judge is at 700.
It's just some of the craziest. Like, I hope people are really appreciating what he's doing. And if you dial it all the way back to 2005, it's the same story. The only other season that gets kind of close is actually Pujols' 671 slug, which matches Yelich's 2019. It was Pujols in 2006. It's once you get to 2000, then you start getting like those steroid seasons seeping in there. You start getting a few other names. You get Barry Bonds 4 times, of course. 863 slug in 2001 is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. That's when he hit 73 home runs, obviously. Then he had 812, 799, 749. Then you have Sosa. But then it's Judge. And that's even dating back since 2000. So if you go back to 2000, this would be the highest slugging percentage season since Bonds 4 times and Sammy Sosa. And those were all 2001 and between 2001 and 2004. Where the ball was just flying and pitchers sucked and everyone was juicing. That's absolutely crazy. So
let's go back. Just last one. Let's go back a little bit more, right? You're talking about the best seasons, but all these guys did steroids, right? Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds. What about the greatest power hitter ever that didn't do steroids? Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron, the best slugging percentage he ever put up in a season.
Yeah, he's a compiler.
Was 669.
Still nasty, actually, better than I would have thought.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But Aaron Judge has put up 2 seasons, 2022 and 2024, better than that. Better than Hank Aaron's best.
I mean, that is crazy. And that's part of the part of me where I wish like Judge got up here a little bit sooner so he could accumulate. And I mean, what he could have done if he got up a little bit earlier, I mean, is just crazy. But yeah, I mean, when you're putting up steroid era numbers and you're, obviously clean, you got something special going. So it's been really fun to see. And, I'm hoping he can, kind of, it's not really a narrative yet, but I know if he struggles, it'll start to be. I hope he has a good postseason because I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear any of that bullshit. Like, I hope he has a good postseason. That's all I'll say.
Twitter's going to be very hard for me to operate if he does not have a good postseason. I am going.
What does it matter? He's a regular season merchant. He can't play when it matters. Blah blah blah.
I'm gonna have to figure out some. I'm gonna have to figure out some narratives. We're gonna have to spin zone some of this Yankee fans. All right. Hopefully everybody enjoyed. It was a big top 10s. Top 10 players to watch in the Arizona Fall League. Top 10 rookies from the 2024 MLB season. Top 10 most valuable players. And you can find all of this writing here on justbaseball.com. For anyone a little bit disappointed, they want to hear more about the American League wildcard races. That's what we're doing tomorrow. We're going to get you primed for the entire weekend, get you slated for the playoffs. So that'll be a big episode. Hopefully it's with the 3 of us, but at the very least, it'll be with the 2 of us. Hopefully everybody enjoyed. And if you did, please, the best way to support this show is to rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts, 5 stars, hitting that big red subscribe button on YouTube, hitting the like button on this video if you enjoyed. Also, go get yourself some Just Baseball merch. Aram and I are both rocking our hats. Obviously, we're not Jack who hates the company. Don't be like Jack. Go get yours in the episode description with code JB15. 15% off Just Baseball merch. It's getting a little chilly. Go get yourself a nice little sweatshirt with some JB logos on it. For Aram Layden, I'm Peter Apple. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow with that. Thank you, everybody.